Good evening and welcome to the Town of Norfolk Planning Board meeting on February 12th. Please be aware that the meeting is being audio and videotaped for future reference and folks at home. First order of business, we have a request for continuance for 134 Main Street. So I need a motion to continue to March 12th, our next meeting, at 7 p.m., I presume. Hi, Greg.
Actually, 7:10, please.
At 7:10, all right. Someone want to make a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is a unanimous vote. Second order of business, we have a request for continuance from 273 Dedham Street. So we need a motion to continue that to our March meeting, the 12th.
We actually have to wait until 7:10 to do that.
All right. Keeps me honest.
Keep you honest.
I tried.
7:05, well, we got one more minute, but I'll,
You can take them.
You can take 'em.
It's not a public hearing.
yeah, it looks like 7:05 to me.
Yep.
Request for occupancy, 14 Sharon Ave, Norfolk Police Headquarters and Communications. You're up.
All right, I have my ads built, so we've had, we've had a consultant. Rick is actually supposed to be here. Kind of concerned because he told me he's gonna be here. He was
The weather, probably, the weather, yeah.
Yes.
No, he was
So,
I
we have
I did put it up on the whiteboard.
we have our ads built. You'll have to forgive me, I've never done this before, so I'm just gonna stumble my way through it.
Okay.
Grab the mic.
So we have some modifications to the original approved plan. I had come back here last year and had some minor alterations, I think they were considered, which we discussed. So as of right now, we're looking to gain occupancy for the building, and we're almost 100% on the site work. There are a few examples that have work that has not been completed yet, which will include the final top coat, which we're going to do in the spring, of asphalt, the line striping, and also we have to finish putting our plants in around our granite signs that we recently put in the ground. But besides that, the site work is done. We have made some modifications, so I will go over what was changed to the original plan. The departures from the approved plan where there was 2 evergreen trees which were supposed to be planted here, which is all fenced, and it's also fenced from MAS. It's all ledge up there. We couldn't really plant them. So one thing that we had done, we had discussed before, is we had to make this pad larger. We put more evergreen trees around that to try to conceal that a little bit more, so we kind of did a swap.
And that's shown on the plan, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Drainage manhole number 8. This was not on the original plans. Nobody knew about it. We found it. We're using it. It's picking up the stormwater in the back, the rainwater in the back. It's hooked up. It's drainage manhole number 6. It was always tied in there. It just was not shown previously.
Okay.
Another alteration was catch basin number 1, which is in the dirt. That called for a stormwater insert. We did not end up doing that. It's in the dirt, and the structure that was there would not accept a stormwater insert, and there was 36-inch piping going through there, and we made the determination, since it wasn't in the parking lot area, to leave it as existing. Catch basin number 2 was relocated, and the reason that was relocated is we had already discussed previously that we had to shift our retaining wall up a couple of feet, which shifted the entire parking lot up a couple of feet. We just moved it from the existing drawing because it had to, because the wall was in the way. Catch basin number 4 is tied into catch basin number 5. This is a storm scepter. It had plenty of pitch. We have permission from the civil engineer to do this. We ran it in a 12-inch line. It was pitched back, so we were able to run a straight shot into 5. Infiltration pond, subsurface area, there was called for one over here. Mr. Weddleton, to his accolades, he discovered that we weren't at 80% and we didn't quite need that infiltration pond.
Yep, yep.
We went over just a tick. I think we're at 80.2%. The building committee voted to accept that. But even if we did want to put that in, it's all ledge over here, so it wasn't going to really work. So the site's draining perfectly. There is no standing water whatsoever on the site.
And these are all changes that were brought before the board before, right?
The only one I'm not aware of is the catch basin, Mr. Weddleton, and the other.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, and the drainage.
Drainage.
The tower was relocated. We already discussed that. The physical base of the tower was massive. We had to move it.
Yep.
By doing that, we eliminated one of the structures that was in the ground. There was 2 structures in a row. We removed one of them. We had run all this through the civil. We had plenty of capacity. It physically got damaged when we were moving stuff around to make the hole. It was redundant, so we removed it. Generators and generator pad, they were shown coming this way. They were physically too long and you wouldn't have had your access into the building, how they were, so we changed them. And also the AC pad was made larger. And right now, there's 20 perennials here and 20 perennials here missing. Other
Next
than
spring? Next spring?
springtime, yes. I have 20 yards of loom waiting to finish doing everything. We've had all the landscaping done. Everything was hydro-seeded. They're going to come back, part of their warranties, they're going to come back in the spring and rehydro it.
Yep.
They guaranteed all the plants because they went in pretty late. They've guaranteed everything. So we're looking to gain occupancy permit. Today we had the health department out. They inspected and they passed our septic and our we have a sewage injection pump which has a force main out to the street. They did look at the tight tank, which I am not approved fully on yet. The plans, the engineered plans, are called for 1 high water alarm. In the main, it's a vaulted tank. Wade felt it, and it was a good call that we should have one for the interstitial space between the 2 tanks. So we're going with the same setup as what we had in the inner one because it was already approved for the float and the sensor by the engineers. So I'm going to twin it up and have that installed by week's end if I can get the parts. But as far as sanitation and holding, we're in good shape. So I'm not sure how the process works, but really want to get my occupancy.
Either of you have either comments on any of these items that he mentioned?
None in particular. I think the probably the pathway would be a temporary, and then for now, and that way you can get your occupancy.
Okay.
Finish it when you're done.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Rick, you have anything to add?
Matt did a fine job.
Okay.
The site looks very good. Stormwater, we've been out there in rain events. Stormwater is directed to the catch basin area, no puddling.
I'm sorry, I hate to do it to you, but you gotta,
Hi, Rick Goodrow with United Consultants. As I was saying, we've been out there in some pretty significant rain events. There's no ponding, puddling of any water. Everything's flowing towards the catch basins. Everything looked good. Landscaping, for the most part, was in. The signs went in. They weren't able to do any planting when the signs were installed, so there were some plants left off there. And most of the other things are common occurrences that happen in the construction of the site, changes of the pads for the generators, for instance. So they're all pretty standard stuff. The stormwater pipes are all flowing in the right direction, and everything looked pretty good.
Chuck, you wanna add anything? No? Okay. So, Rich, you recommend a temporary
Temporary
occupancy permit
occupancy permit, and then
to be made permanent when what happens?
well, once all the plantings are finished, which
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so the remaining items that you described.
the punch list items that are left.
Plantings in the sign area, final course of pavement and line striping.
Yeah,
And top coat.
top
He's going to
coat,
be working with a temporary occupancy occupancy until?
I'm hoping to have it paved as soon as possible. We were gonna try to hold off in case we were gonna do the solar, but at this point, we're just gonna pave it, and if we have to cut the roadway up in one section, we will. I can't guarantee their pavers, so if I could have it till maybe June, that way I can get on the schedule, if not before. I just don't wanna set myself up for failure and lose occupancy. It's definitely gonna be done. It's as soon as I can.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to put an end date on it.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, the end of June would make sense.
Yeah.
You have a meeting in the
Should
beginning
be.
of June, so.
Should be plenty of time to finish those things, yeah. So someone want to give me a motion, please, to provide for a temporary occupancy permit through the end of June, subject to the completion list that we just heard?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good luck, fellas. See you on the 27th.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Gotta go home and snow blow.
Yeah. Get your shovel out.
There's not much snow left.
No?
Ice.
Okay, now we can get to the request for continuance for 273 Dedham Street. Someone want to make it until March 12th, our next meeting at, what time? That's
7:20.
Motion to continue the site plan and stormwater management permit for 273 Dedham Street to March 12th at 7:20.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. It is a vote. All right,
5 minutes.
yeah, we gotta wait 5 minutes. Let's see what else we got here. How about minutes, meeting minutes, Aaron? Got a couple of meeting minutes, don't we? Need to get those approved.
I did make one change to the January meeting minutes.
Mm-hmm.
On the second page, I added a paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down, I added a paragraph.
On page 2, huh? Is that where Mr. Weddleton moved to continue?
One up from that.
Okay.
Any discussion on the meeting minutes dated January 15th, 2019?
No, I've read them, they're okay for me.
Motion to approve meeting minutes dated January 15th, 2019.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes for the January 15th meeting, say aye. Aye. It is a vote. And now we also have December, right?
Reverse chronological order. Any discussion on meeting minutes dated December 18th, 2018?
Nope, I read them, they were okay, as far as I'm concerned.
Motion to approve meeting minutes dated December 18th, 2018.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is a vote. Okay. Rich, you want to take a minute? We got 2 or 3 minutes here, just talk about Town Center Grant or Complete Streets. Just fill in a little bit here till we wait till 7:20.
Sure. Well, at the January 28th Board of Selectmen meeting, I presented them the complete street policy to adopt by the Board of Selectmen.
Yep,
The board did vote to adopt it on the 28th
okay.
of January. So my next step is it'll be signed by the chairman, and then I'm going to upload to MassDOT to finish that piece of our working our way towards completing the Complete Streets project.
Yep,
And then we'll, of course, when we get back after 7:20, we'll talk more about the prioritization plan.
okay.
I can tell you, at least if you want to, under new business, I did forward the board an email from the land manager for Pulte Homes that they withdrew their bond request. We had a meeting last week with them to go, as you know, to go over the bond reduction request. They had ones for improvements on Maple Street, as well as the subdivision itself. From the discussion, we came to the point whereby they're not ready for a bond reduction. They've still got a punch list, things to be done there, but also they're going to work on and working with DPW to come in with a new bond to cover the drainage work, because we want to hold that for a few years till that is completed. And then and so Bob McGee's working on that now. We'll forward that to them. They're going to review it. We'll come back to the planning board, so they'll essentially take the bond that's in place and replace it with a new bond, so we cover everything that would need to in the event we had issues with the drainage. From the discussion, the bond right now, they just really wanted to swap out values, but the concern I have potentially is that in that listing of the bond, there's things that wouldn't be subject to what we would need, so that's why we decided to work towards a new bond. So.
In addition to which, the cost of the worst-case situation of cost having to tear it all up and redo those pipes would be significantly more than the value of the bond that we're holding. So,
correct, absolutely, yeah.
So it's going to be a bigger bond.
Bigger bond. And they're going to do some TV in the lines, too, going forward to make sure everything's in order. So they'll be coming back.
So the result, I think, was a step in the right direction for protecting the people down there at Fox.
They're actually going to increase the value of the bond when
Yep.
they switch out the bonds.
Yep.
Is it the same type of bond?
Yeah, it'll be a performance bond by a surety company.
And the letters describing all of this is being put together by Bob McGee. So we'll have a draft of that shortly. We can take a look at, as will the Pulte folks, and then once we tweak that, then it'll be set. We'll cancel the 3 bonds that exist and replace it with a new one. Replace them with a new one. Okay, it's now 7:21, so we can talk about 3 David Road site plan, continued public hearing, and also we have an initial hearing on earth removal, which would require Aaron to read that into the record.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass GL Section 40A of the Norfolk zoning bylaws, Section F11. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 12th, 2019, at 7:20 p.m. in room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Massachusetts, regarding an earth removal relocation permit application for property located at 3 David Road in Norfolk, Massachusetts. The applicant, DMO Realty LLC of Seekonk, Massachusetts, is proposing to remove 1,520 cubic yards of material associated with the construction of a 7,500 square foot commercial service contractor's headquarters with associated parking, utilities, drainage, septic, and grading as depicted on provided plans. The property is located in the C1 on Highway Zoning District. Reference Assessors Map 19, Block 72, Lot 50. The plan and application are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during the hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday.
Thank you, Aaron. So who speaks for, yeah, grab the mic, please. Again, it's not for us, it's for the folks at home.
Yeah. Okay, just make sure everyone can hear me. I'm Brian Weiner, civil engineer with Dunn & McKenzie, and we're here for the continuation of the site plan and the earth removal permit.
Right.
Maybe we could start with the site plan. And we got a lot of feedback at the last public hearing, and based on that feedback, we made some changes to the site plan. If we could go to sheet 3, I think that would be the easiest one to look at. And we resubmitted the plans, the drainage calculations. We had another peer review from Beta, and I think we're down to a number of items that are not so much related to what we talked about at the last meeting, and I can walk you through the changes we made real quick, and then
Sure, go ahead.
maybe we could talk about any open items and, you know, how we could get those closed out.
Well, you got the Beta letter dated yesterday, right?
We do, yes.
Good.
So the changes we made is we have all the stormwater is below grade, storm chambers, infiltration. We shifted the building back, and what that did is it freed up enough space where we could make this work.
How much did you have to shift it back?
We shifted it back 10 feet.
10 feet, okay, yeah.
And so the waiver related to the stormwater infiltration, it's to allow the chambers within 10 feet of the building. It's a frost wall foundation, a slab, there's no basement. And that was something we discussed at the last meeting. So that would be the extent of the waiver at this point. We have the separation distance to the wells. We have the separation distance to the septic.
Yeah.
Since the last
Yeah.
meeting, we retested the leaching field area to make sure, and it's less than 2 minutes an inch. So we have the 150-foot setback distance to the well from the Board of Health regulations.
Yep, okay.
That's the majority of what we've changed. We're able to get rid of this slope over here. It's no longer riprap. It's now a grass slope. And
With what ratio?
it's 2 to 1.
Okay, yeah.
And that's the majority of the changes. A lot of follow-up on stormwater calculations, which I think we've memorialized. And maybe just run through some of the open items, and you know, I think a lot of them could be handled with follow-up, maybe outside the public hearing to close them out, as long as that would be acceptable. So the waivers are the same, other than we've removed the one having to do with the catch basin. We have the standard town catch basin, and a little bit of a modification to the stormwater setback, where it's now just the building.
In Beta's letter on page 4, item SP2, site plan 2.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a 10-cent item, but you have a sidewalk which extends from your parking area around the north end of the building and down the back. And it goes almost all the way to the end, as I recall.
We do. It goes along the back to each
Yeah.
unit, and also on the north side along the side. We don't have it continuing
Because,
on this side, but we could.
well, you know, I would think you would, because human nature being what it is, the guy's gonna park his car, he's not gonna walk, if he's in the first bay there, let's say he's rented the bay, he's not gonna walk all the way around to get there, he's gonna go scooting across and cut in that way. I mean, just human nature, you're gonna take the shortest route. It's not a big deal, it's not a lot of money,
Oh, no, agreed.
I recommend that you do it.
Yeah, we'll make the change. We'll extend it so that it's continuous.
Yeah, we'll right into the parking area there, okay, thank you.
Item 3, it had.
Apparently, the fire chief owes us a letter.
Yeah, and we may have some follow-up as well. I know this plan in front of you, it's very similar to what the fire chief had.
Yeah.
In terms of layout. That really hasn't changed, it's just shifted back the 10
Yeah,
feet.
yeah.
I don't know what follow-up we'll need to do or
Did you,
additional
excuse me,
feedback.
did you send them the AutoCAD turn templates?
We did not, no.
Okay.
In the front of the building, it's pull straight forward. It would just be this one radius here, which I know it works. I can put it on a plan if that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I suspect that's what he'll want to see. So.
Okay. Yeah, we can follow up with that.
Okay.
And then, some items such as the organizational documents, which we
Yep.
need to follow up with.
Yep.
I don't have those prepared, and I need to
Right.
go over that with the owner.
Sure. Page 7, item SW 17. Small item, just a few more inches of gravel.
Yeah, we can update that. That's easy to do.
Page 8, item 23, SW 23. Just a matter, I think, of you catching up with what we want.
Yeah, if it's acceptable to the board, we would go with a straw wattle with the sill fence and replace the hay bale with the straw wattle.
Yep.
We'll
Yep.
update that
Yeah, that's
construction
all right.
detail.
Yep.
Make sure it's a 12-inch diameter one.
We'll-
You gotta change your, plan to say that.
Yeah, we'll change the construction detail and let me see if there's anything on the plan view. But if there's any notes, we'll update that as well.
Right.
Looks like the next one is 26, SW 26, still an open, the way I read it, there's no issue in contention, it's just a matter of getting the information. Is that right?
That's correct. We need to update the O&M plan.
Yeah, okay. Snow storage area, where's the snow storage area? Are we gonna push it?
We have 2 snow storage areas. Let's see. If you go to sheet 4, it's sheet 3. We have them in the footprint of the pavement. Or, I'm sorry. No, those are stockpile areas.
Yeah. It's a tight site.
Yeah, we were planning on some snow storage back here, and some in the front. And
Well, if
I
you push it
don't
back
know.
there, you can't get at the sidewalk.
Correct. Yeah, we have to push it beyond the sidewalk
Yeah.
into this area. We could put a little bit. It's tight a little bit in this corner, and then we have this area over here in
Yeah.
front of the building. We
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
if necessary, and we could also remove any that we need to off-site.
Well, I think the point was it wasn't designated on the plan, right?
Yeah, we just wanna make sure you're thinking about it, before it happens, make sure you're not gonna cause a problem.
Yeah.
The next one down is, again, another one that I don't think there's anything in contention, just a matter of the information hasn't been provided. 28.
Yeah, I apologize about the snow removal. I thought it was on the plan.
That's all right, not a big deal. You can fix that.
Yeah, not number 28. We have to get the owner to sign it.
Yep.
I had signed it.
All right, then LA 2, 3, 4, and 5. It seems to me that the right thing to do would be to take the site plan and run it in front of the design review board and get some recommendations on plantings and whatnot. Would you agree with that, Aaron, since you're,
I would.
okay? So perhaps between now and the next meeting, you could set up a session with the design review board and bring your site plan in, your landscape plan in, and go over these items with them. Close that out.
They'll be interested in the building too.
Yep, design of the building as well. It looks to me like we've got just about everything we need, a few loose ends here. Hopefully we can draft up a decision, have it in a draft form for next meeting, and you folks come back in with all these remaining issues closed, we could proceed from there.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll get these items followed up. We'll have them closed out.
Do you know how much he's developed the architectural plans to be able to send them to the design review board?
Yeah, I have. We've been working on that,
Okay.
and we have. They still need a little bit of updating, but we have more information about the type of building and type of material.
Oh, okay.
We'd got some more information from the owner, so we're trying to put that
Okay.
package together to get that closed out
Okay.
and get in front of the design review board. At the same time, we could go over the
Yep.
landscaping and
Yep.
see if what we've provided will work for everybody.
Sure. If we can close that out between now and the next meeting, then we can proceed. You'll be on your way.
Aaron,
Alright,
who
then.
would, I know Bob's away right now, so who's the vice chair to?
John, of this committee?
No, design review
design
board to
review
get that,
I don't know, to be honest with you.
okay.
Make a command decision and decide you could be the vice chair.
All right.
Because you were thinking about scheduling a meeting.
Yeah.
Like who would schedule the meeting and.
Yeah, for these guys. I mean, we're talking about,
We must have somebody assigned.
okay,
I just don't know who it is.
all right.
Well, I can reach out to the whole board, so.
Sure.
Okay.
We won't let that administrative issue get in the way of having a meeting, so there'll be a meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And you can, rest assured that you can be there with your information. Okay, any other questions on the part of the board members?
This was, I'm just trying to remember, this was the building that you already had a design for. There's no, am I correct?
Correct,
And-
yeah,
And you
it's-
kept trying to squeeze the existing building onto the site. So you're still moving the same structure, same footprint around on, so are you able to provide the details of the existing building to the design review board?
I am. Yeah, we have information, and I can submit it. It's very similar to what's been built in the
Yeah,
past.
because it's not gonna change too much, right? That's what you were trying
Correct.
to do this whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just forward it to Betsy, I guess, and she'll get it in the hands of the design review board. So, Rich, you all set?
I am, thank you.
Okay, Phil, anything else? Okay. All right, we're done for this evening. I think we ought to keep the public
Yeah,
hearing
continue it to
open.
the next, correct.
Right, and
Yep.
go now to the next one, which is the earth removal one.
Okay, so this is continued to what, March meeting?
We will continue it to the March meeting. So we need a motion to continue the public hearing for the site plan until March 12th at 7:30.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Do we, as a part of that motion, do we need to attach our recommendation for them to go to the design review board?
good idea. There's a friendly amendment which requires that we include in that motion that they attend a meeting with the Design Review Board.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. So, earth removal, sir.
So earth removal permit, we did the calculations, put together the application, and we're showing a net export of about 1,500 cubic yards, and it's a little bit of loam, a little bit of tailings that would be left over from screening of the loam,
Yep.
and some B and C layer soil. So we don't have an exact quantity of each one. I mean, we made assumptions on how much loam is here based on the test pits, and
Yep.
we know it'll be about 1,500 yards.
Rich, have you seen the application?
Have any, and Phil reviewed that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of doing the construction.
Yeah.
so
I mean, the
as long as
application
you
looked all
probably
right?
have your
Yes.
erosion controls, yeah.
Yeah, the information's there, everything is, yeah, okay, all right.
So I'm just, I don't know if you have standing conditions for operation, hours of operation, and,
We do.
you're right there on the trucking shouldn't be a problem on the roads, right?
No,
I wouldn't think so, but,
no. We do have standard conditions that we incorporate as part of the site plan approval with the earth removal.
yeah, so we'll put those conditions together and look to have a decision on that at the next meeting as well. So, and if we have a draft beforehand, we could probably get it in your hands and take a look at it. All right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other issues from the board? Any questions from the board members? Aaron?
I'm just thinking it's a lot of dirt, but I recognize the grading of this site's a bit of an issue.
Yeah,
But,
it's a
you
tough-
know, I wouldn't be surprised if the design review board asked you for a section through the site, just so we can understand that you can't keep any of that dirt on site. I don't know if I've been trying to get the drawings downloaded, it's not working for me, but.
Yeah, we provided a section back in March which has to be updated
Yeah.
because
Be a
we've
good
raised
idea.
the building a foot and reworked the grades a little bit, which actually resulted in less material coming
Yeah,
off site.
sure, if you raise it up, yeah.
But
It's worth,
if we could keep it on site, we would. There's just nowhere to put it.
I would say that's worth mentioning when you present to the design review board.
So we'll have an updated section view.
Yep. All right, then I would entertain a motion to continue the earth removal permit hearing until March 12th at
7:30 is fine.
7:30. Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. You're off the hook until March 12th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
I think that's a good solution that you came up with there. It's better than what was presented last time.
your feedback
Yeah.
brought us in the right direction.
Yep. Okay.
That's the site back.
All right, 7:30, Cranberry Heights definitive open space.
It's mine. It's mine.
We're ready for you.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On behalf of the applicant, my name is Steve O'Connell from Andrews Survey and Engineering. As you know, this project's been going on for quite a while. There's been some delays in the hearing process, and just to kind of bring you up to speed, there's been a lot of activity that's been taking place behind the scenes, meeting with department heads, meeting with Rich. As you may recall, an important component of this project was to provide water infrastructure. And if you've been following along in any aspect of bless you, in that part of town, you know that the grant provided some water and some bridge improvements for the Lawrence Street causeway there. There's a large affordable housing project across the street, which my client has been trying to coordinate with, which makes a lot of sense, so we can provide the best possible outcome for both projects, in particular the water infrastructure. So there's been a number of delays that have really kind of dictated which path this project would go if it was even feasible. Because this project by itself cannot sustain the infrastructure costs to bring the water from Park all the way up Lawrence into Eagle Drive, through the project and out Cranberry Meadow. So as I said, we've been working with an adjoining developer, working with the town, various departments in the town to find the best possible outcome. So been taking some direction from the applicant, my client, and we wanted to bring you up to speed this evening. I'll let you know that the latest round of comments we received from Beta, we've prepared revised plans for that you have yet to see. We've not submitted those just in case there were any changes based on some ongoing meetings, like I mentioned. But we believe we're prepared to submit those for follow-up review. And what we would like to share with you this evening is the intent to comply with your affordable housing bylaw as is required in this size subdivision. And what we'll be doing to comply with that is to provide a duplex unit within one of the lots.
Before we get into
two-family unit.
to that issue, which is an important issue.
Sure.
Can you tell us where you stand with your understanding of the water situation before we proceed into that?
Sure. Well, what we're proposing to do, well, I think there are two scenarios that remain up in the air. One is, there is some discussion about whether the town would bring water up Lawrence Street. If that were to happen, this project could sustain the infrastructure costs to loop it up Cranberry Meadow, through the project, and up to Eagle back to Lawrence, with trench patching, which we've discussed with Rich and DPW and trying to finalize and memorialize
Including all the
that.
laterals.
Services to the curb stop,
Yeah.
right to the front property lines of the houses, right? So
Okay.
that would bring about 30 houses online with potable water, which I think would be a great thing.
Okay, so that's one option.
Yep, that's one option. The other option would be if the town decided that they were not going to embark on bringing water up Lawrence, the project could only sustain the cost of bringing the water up Cranberry Meadow, in through the project, and then leaving a stub on Eagle. So that's what we've concluded, the two options in those two scenarios. And I don't know if Rich cares to speak on.
Just to be clear, make sure. Second option would be you'd start at Park Street and come up.
Yep, we'd come up Lawrence to the entrance of Cranberry Meadow.
Yeah.
Up Cranberry Meadow.
Yeah.
And then in the project, throughout the
Stub it
project,
over there, yeah, okay.
and stub at
Right,
the.
understood.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
With trench patch.
Yep.
Is the one question, is that loop in between still part of that or not? The connection? Up Lawrence to Eagle? No, in between. You had shown a loop back. Oh, yeah. Yep. So
Okay.
they would be, so we'd be providing a loop within the project.
Within the
yes.
project,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, no problem. So, I think those details are still being
Yes.
finalized. Doesn't necessarily affect the design of the subdivision itself
Right.
within the confines of the
Yep.
project boundary, but perhaps some details, conditions of approval, we get to that point.
Yep.
The one thing I just wanted to add, that I talked to Attorney McTurnan on the phone yesterday, was about the lighting. I think there was the idea of, instead of providing street lights throughout the street, there'd be a tie to a lamppost on the house development.
Every house lot would have a lamp post, close to the street. It's something that these gentlemen have done on other projects with success. It's on a dawn to dusk sensor, LED light, long-lasting light.
We've seen those before.
Very nice, yeah. And we've done them here in Norfolk and other communities. They're very nice, and that cost is borne by the homeowner.
Yep.
Becomes effective way of lighting.
Sure.
And cost effective for everybody. Yep. So that would be something we would include with our revised submittal package, formal waiver. So as I started to say, was we'd be providing the affordable units in compliance with your bylaw. We'd be providing a two-family dwelling on one of the lots. It would have the appearance of a single-family dwelling. It would be a colonial style with a portico, one single door, serving, providing two dwellings for two-family, both of which would be affordable, allowed within your affordable housing bylaw. The lot to be determined, but
What would you do with the garage situation?
we've talked about having a detached garage and having a driveway style that would give the appearance of a single family.
Okay, all right.
Maybe a side entry garage,
Yeah.
that would have access from the rear or.
All right, now the original concept was that there would be two single-family homes on two separate lots, right? For the affordables.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we necessarily talked a lot in detail about that. I think maybe that was.
That's pretty much standard the way it's done.
It's something that you typically, it's not uncommon to see that, sure. Your bylaw has a lot of flexibility, which is nice.
Yeah.
It would actually allow for a market rate unit and an affordable unit within a two-family style. But I think because the numbers are tight, I think we've shared that with you before. This project, as a standalone project, is to bring the water infrastructure, which we're trying to work with the town.
Yeah.
We're looking at, we're looking under every leaf to see where savings can occur and exposure can be limited.
Well, our standard operating procedure, if you will, is that we have two standalone affordable units on two separate lots. And your proposal is to put one lot, one house, looks like a single-family house with two units in it, which frees up that second lot for you to put a market rate unit on it, right?
Correct. Right.
So that's a little bit of a deviation from what we do, and the question I would ask you would be, okay, not an unreasonable proposal, but it's something that we would expect a little give and take on here. So what would you propose to offer as an offset to that?
Well, that proposal allows us to bring the water the way that, the option that we mentioned, which would be all the way from Park, up Cranberry Meadow, and in and throughout the project, while looping it inside the project.
Yeah. Rich,
yeah, and if the town were to bring it up Lawrence, we could make that loop up through Eagle. In both, that two-family scenario on one lot allows us the flexibility to do the water infrastructure in one of the two ways we mentioned.
So
go ahead, Rich.
I guess if the water was done by the town, well, no, actually, let's say hypothetically, I guess the 40B across the street, then you loop in the water, you would just do the affordables on each individual lot, or you still would do a duplex with the looping requirement in there?
If the 40B brought the water up?
Yeah, so basically if, at Cranberry Meadow Road or even Eagle, either way you want to look at it, you're just completing the loop.
Right.
Does the affordables need to be, the numbers don't work as on two separate lots?
I think that's why where we started the first time. The plan that was submitted looped it in the subdivision, brought it up either Cranberry or Eagle, and looped it in the subdivision. When there was a request to loop it, that's when, you know, you and I and a number of other people were talking about, do we do a duplex? Do we split a lot? And then we found that two-family language in your bylaw, and that seemed to work. So really, that's what we were looking to do.
Okay.
You know, we're kind of back there again. We originally thought, you know, we had talked to the other developer that he was going to bring that up
Yeah.
Lawrence Street, and then we'd just bring it down Cranberry Meadow.
Yeah.
That was the original thought.
Thoughts from board members about the single lot, two-family approach to the affordable?
I think I have to see it before I'd be able to really give any kind of directional thought on it, because
See the
you're right,
design
it's
of-
something that I haven't seen before. It might be in the bylaws, but I don't think I've seen that proposed yet. And how that would fit
Architecturally,
in.
you mean?
Yeah. And see how that would fit in with a subdivision of all single-family homes. I don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb.
No, I understand.
That goes against the intent of the bylaw.
Do we have, at this point in your engineering work, do we have architectural work on any of the houses? No. Including this one, we don't have.
Your bylaw actually has the language you're looking for, too. It must look like a single-family house, like the others in the subdivision. And we'd be glad to make it subject to approval by the board, the architecture. We didn't want to have it completely done, not knowing how the board would feel about it.
Rich, would you find that paragraph and read it to us?
Sure. Section H3E2, in the subdivision, the required affordable units may be provided in a two-family home designed to appear as a single-family home whose exterior appearance, including a single driveway and common entryways and architecture, is compatible with that of the other houses within the subdivision. If only a single affordable is required, that is, if the subdivision creates only 10 lots, the second unit could be a market rate and affordable. In no case shall the total number of units exceed the total number that is to be allowed in a conventional subdivision. However, the open space bonus does apply to the subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Which lot is proposed?
We haven't necessarily decided.
Okay.
You know, corner lots offer opportunities on these scenarios because you could bring driveways in from each street. So from each street, you have a single-family appearance, but
But we're doing two-family here with single driveway it requires.
Yeah.
so,
That's why we thought a detached garage
yeah.
and a single door, you know, would look like a single family.
Right. Like I said, we're,
It does say single driveway too, but, you know.
Right.
yeah, exactly, that's right.
You know, the intent is not to have the house stand out to be different from all the other houses in the neighborhood.
Correct.
So if one could design a corner lot such that a driveway came off a single street, you know, instead of two driveways coming off the same street, a single driveway coming off of two different streets, maybe we can make the argument that that's a single driveway off of the street, right? So I think the point of conversation here is that, yes, our language allows for this duplex unit, but by the same token, this duplex unit can't look foreign to the development of the
No,
rest of the neighborhood.
absolutely.
So, you know, it's gonna take some work to figure out how we deal with garages and all of that stuff, so. It's just my first thoughts on that, so.
Yeah, single driveway, I think, is pretty clear in the language. Single driveway to an attached garage, that works. I mean, you can see
I
a
think so.
two-car garage there. You
Absolutely.
wouldn't know whether that was a single-family home or a duplex. You wouldn't know it.
Right.
Well, I think we could consider conditioning the language to have the architecture look similar to the other architecture in the development.
Be subject to your review.
Yeah. Greg?
Yeah, so you still, they still would need to apply for the affordable through the affordable, the
Yes.
affordable.
Yes.
Right.
So that would,
So we're preparing that. We've got a butters list from Norfolk that's come in and took a little bit longer to get one from Rentham because we're up against the town line, but we just got that late last week. So we've got that special permit application package in the works.
The other thing to keep in mind with that is the pace at which you would need to provide those houses, right? So I think because you've got two, you could, in theory, separate them out, but you wouldn't be able to do that with a duplex unit, right? So,
So we do it early.
the two duplex units would be at the same time as the first affordable unit, right?
yeah, so we would actually get it ahead of time.
Right.
Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, but I don't think it could be answered since they don't have any really architectural guidelines right now, but, you know, going back to the point of a unit sticking out, there be other single-family homes with detached garages as well, so it wasn't like, oh, the one with the detached garage is the affordable housing unit, and it's the only one in the property. But I was just thinking out loud, and I'm assuming you guys don't know what's gonna be where.
No, but I think with this guidance tonight, we can start to work towards that.
So the main point of the conversation tonight was just to continue the conversation.
I think so, yeah.
Well,
To present
no,
this
well,
as an
no.
idea and get reaction from the board as to what we think of, language notwithstanding, what we think of the idea of a duplex,
Yeah, so-
affordable.
Yeah, it's important. In this case, they'll have to come back as a special permit. So if there's, really no pathway to see how that could work, it'd be good to know. Particularly because it's really kind of interconnected to the water infrastructure, not necessarily. So that kind of ties into it too a little bit. What water improvements are being done with this to go in this direction? Which again, we still don't really know. I mean,
Now, am I working under the misconception? I thought that the original agreement that we had with you folks was that you would bring the water up from Park Street all the way to Cranberry Meadows Road and then loop it through. Is that not true? Was that not the original plan?
No, I don't remember that being.
so in the
discussion. Go ahead,
you
Rich.
can hold in the special permit. It says the water be brought from Park Street up to Eagle Drive. It doesn't talk about looping, but that was the
Up to Eagle, okay.
correct. Yeah, that was the condition of the permit.
All right, so that presumably you would tap into it, and it doesn't require that you go back and tie into the Lawrence Street again.
I think initially you try to avoid essentially Cranberry Meadow Road because you're afraid about what you would find there ledge-wise. And so the first, quite a while ago, your proposal was going up Lawrence and then coming to Eagle.
Yes, yeah, I
Even
remember
in
that.
that way, right? So-
What did you find on Cranberry Meadow in terms of ledge?
We don't know yet.
Oh, you haven't dug in, okay. Haven't
No,
dug in.
I mean, you can see the ledge all around Cranberry Meadow. It's certain we're gonna hit some of it. You just don't know how much.
Just an aside, in another development in this town, we've had tremendous difficulty with subcontractors who had to run drainage lines down through ledge and who did not follow the guidelines in terms of backfilling and used oversized, busted up ledge, causing the pipes to collapse. And it was a nightmare.
Yeah, we're familiar with that.
As so, just a word of caution, if you find ledge in there and you've got to cut a trench, don't backfill it with anything bigger than the 4-inch, which is, or smaller, which is required.
Yep.
For your own sake and for the town's sake.
Understood.
I think there's a cross to be somebody to nail to if that happens again.
Is there a lot premium for any of the lots, or any of the lots seen as exclusive to others? Are they more expensive if they're further in, or? been contemplated.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could, from a layman's standpoint, you could look at those and say, okay, the ones that, are in a cul-de-sac that maybe have flat topography or flatter topography would be premiums. I mean, there's a real estate perspective where usually the last home sold in a development is most expensive because the price point has been established as the project's going forward. So there's a couple different theories there. I mean, I don't think we've put a lot of thought, or I haven't, as my, in my role in this process. I'm sure these gentlemen put some thought into that more than I have. But
Just asking because it might default to where the other house is going to be the duplex.
it's true.
But,
Certainly could.
Well, on the idea of the duplex affordable, what I'm hearing from the board and my own thoughts, and Rich, is it's conceivable with some constraints about design and compatibility with the architecture and the rest of the development.
Yep.
And subject to bringing it back and review and going to the design review board with those designs as well. So I think we're kind of over that hump.
Okay.
Do you have just add, I think you did mention kind of at least a general idea how large the home you were targeting for the market?
Do you remember?
Well, just in general, I guess. I mean, I know it's hard.
Probably something from 2,300 to 3,000.
Okay.
That area.
Just to get an idea as it relates to the two-family.
Yep.
That's all.
But now, if I want to clarify one other thing. When I heard Rich read that, I thought I heard a clause in there which said that the total number of units cannot change. Would you clarify that for me?
In no case shall the total number of units exceed the number of lots that would be allowed in a conventional subdivision. So they did come in, do their yield plan. The next sentence says, however, the bonus provisions of H2C3 shall still apply to subdivisions developed under section H2. So for the people at home who, let me get the title. Section H2 of the zoning bylaw is an open space preservation residential subdivision, so which within that bylaw allows a bonus for open space.
Therefore, in terms of the number of lots, it's the same number of lots that we looked at before, whether it was two of them were affordable, or in this case, one's affordable and the extra one is another market rate house, right?
So 20 market rate, 2 affordable. Because they came in with 20 under the conventional and got 2. I mean, essentially the way the bylaw is structured right now, you go open space, it gives you a bonus.
Yep.
But then the bonus gets taken up by the affordable.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So how many lots are we looking at there?
22.
It's 22 lots.
All right.
So one of the lots will have the duplex to
the
provide
duplex on it.
Do
Other
we-
issues tonight, gentlemen?
Do we know any timing, Rich, about the water decision regarding the town bringing it from Park up Lawrence?
I don't have a good idea, to be honest with you, time-wise. I mean, I think, as you know, the Abbeville was before the Zoning Board of Appeals on the, I want to say the 5th, maybe, was it Wednesday? Well, technically they weren't there. They continued, and they're still in the evaluation process, going through the environmental evaluation related to the extent of the contamination on the Buckley Man site, which as they're going through, they're trying to assess whether or not they're going to go forward as part of their work. So I know Abbeville is continued to March 6th. So I suspect maybe we might have a better idea by March 6th, which would be prior to this meeting. And then the idea of the town bringing the water really hasn't been discussed out with the Board of Selectmen yet. So
Okay.
I know one member has two hats on here, but that different hat for tonight, but
Yeah.
that hasn't been out yet as far as whether or not to do that. I mean, the really the issue with that, or actually the thought behind that, is because we're doing the Lawrence Street Improvement Project, that if all doesn't go well with any of this that we're talking about, the thought is to think about whether we should have the water line included in the Lawrence Street Improvement Project. Now, in the event if water needs to be then continue on up Lawrence Street into the surrounding residential neighborhoods, it's in place, as opposed to doing it after the fact.
You know, we were hoping this evening the board might ask Rich to put together a draft decision based upon what we were talking about, so everybody can get a look at it. Because I think the subdivision itself, you know, there isn't much more to discuss other than that, the two-family home and how the water is going to come up. And that's why we were offering two scenarios: either bring it from Park to Cranberry into the subdivision, loop it in the subdivision, or if the town brought it up, then we'd bring it up Cranberry and back through Eagle to tie it in. But
Well,
we'd like to see the everything in place so we can figure out when that final decision is made.
Yeah.
Get ready to go forward, you know.
I would guess, however, that if the town is going to consider running the water from Park Street up, they're not going to run it all the way up to Eagle. I would guess it is going to run it across the causeway.
Okay.
So that would mean that you'd have to pick it up from there and take it up to Cranberry Meadow, go through, and tie in out Eagle, and then back down Lawrence to pick up the stub that was there when you went in Cranberry.
Oh, that's something we hadn't understood yet anyway.
Well, I don't know, but that's an option that I'm hearing.
No, that's a valid point. So for clarification, so the water, as you know, the water line is in the bridge,
Right.
but there's a section that isn't. It comes off of Park Street, give or take 40, 50 feet.
Right.
Finish that connection, bring it across the causeway, and then it would just terminate for now at the end of the limits of the Lawrence Street project, which is at the end of the that.
So that's a little different than what you may have had in your mind, you know?
Okay.
And it's all bucks, one way or the other. But to your point about drafting a decision, I'm amenable to that if you are, just to start working on a draft.
I'm not averse to the idea, I suppose, but we could draft something and see, and maybe we might have a better idea what's going on at the beginning of March.
Yeah.
I will say though, just for the record, I know you're working hard for your clients there, but DPW does want the road reclaimed as part of this looping, not just a patch. Now the board might have a different opinion of it, but I know, at least from DPW side, just to have everything out there.
Well, we got to get DPW here to discuss it with these gentlemen so that we can come to resolution on that.
All right. So I just wanted to,
whichever way we go down the road.
Yeah, we can certainly work on that, and I think that comes down to just wording in the decision.
Well, it also comes down to how much money DPW's got and when they're probably going to resurface the road anyway.
well, yeah, I mean, the truth be told, right, as far as priorities, resurfacing roads, they're not.
Subdivision roads are pretty far down the list, even if
not
it's,
high on the
even
list.
if it's
We don't have a lot of, we don't get a lot
Yeah.
of Chapter 90 money, so
if it's in desperate need like Cranberry Meadow, it's pretty.
yeah.
Well,
There's a lot of streets that are in desperate need.
yeah, well, we can continue to work diligently with the departments
With
like
Bob,
we
yeah.
have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
with Bob. We've met with Bob a couple times.
Okay.
Like I said, I think that doesn't necessarily affect the content of the subdivision plans themselves. That's probably more language in the decision.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Maybe some supplemental plans if necessary, but
So again, I'm not adverse to asking Rich to start a draft. It'll probably get several revisions before we're finally through, but
understood.
Because I'd like to see this go ahead. It's a nice development. A difficult piece of land, which we've worked with you on to try and
Just,
optimize it.
I'm sorry, one more point I
Yeah,
should
yeah.
have made. Actually, I should have did at the beginning, I suppose. But there is a there was a renegotiation of the 61A property with the property owner. The right of first refusal that by law comes to the town is being circulated to different departments. So the Board of Selectmen hasn't received all the feedback yet. So just again, for people at home, probably more so than anybody else, that is simultaneously going on. So it will get back to the Board of Selectmen as it makes its way through. So there could be I suppose it could be a recommendation to town to buy the property, but just want to let the board know. So
I'm unclear as which piece of property you're talking about?
this property here. So this
This
property,
property.
yeah, this property.
So the applicant renegotiated their purchase price with the current landowner as part of their effort to make this a feasible, cost-effective project. But because of that, the right of first refusal, the town is entitled at a second bite of the apple, so to
Okay.
speak,
Yep.
because of the renegotiated price.
Yep. Right.
They did not opt to make the purchase the first time.
The first time, yeah.
So they have 120
days.
days.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we are in that
Mhm.
period, but like about 45, I guess. But like Rich said, the selectmen do not have all the recommendations in for them
Yep.
to act on that.
Got it.
So.
But you're aware of that, Kevin?
But I think that speaks to the level of detail that is being put into the cost associated with, the project and associated infrastructure in an effort to make it work. I mean, I know the water infrastructure is going to be, critical component, and some existing residents would certainly stand to benefit from connecting to potable water.
Yeah,
So-
the unfortunate thing is with that development across the street has got the other issues that it's trying to deal with, and that's slowing everything down.
Certainly has. We've certainly been victims of, of that process, because I think if that project was further along and we knew that water was going to get brought up from that project, we could make different types of commitments.
Right. Okay, other items that you'd like to put in front of us tonight?
Just to let you know, we're in front of the Conservation Commission for some determination, for some of the trail work that was proposed as part of
Yep.
this project.
Yep.
They haven't had any conclusive discussion because we've had a number of continuances. Tomorrow night's meeting has been canceled due to a lack of a quorum, but our wetland scientist did meet Janet on site, and an issue that she had questions about in this area has been resolved, so I suspect that that'll come to completion at the upcoming conservation meeting.
Sure.
Does not affect the plans, I guess is.
Well, my guess is that you will not devote any resources to creating architectural drawings on houses until such time as this water issue gets resolved.
Probably not, right from a financial standpoint, but we could look for samples, even photographs, something easy that
Yeah.
could just start to get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to the board and to the design review board, particularly around this issue of the duplex unit,
Yep.
relative to the architecture and the rest of the homes. So anything you could do in that regard would be welcome.
Sure. Okay.
Rich, anything else? Phil, you all set?
I haven't seen what
Yeah.
the updates are.
You will. Okay.
Aaron,
All
anything
set.
else? Kevin?
Nothing for mine.
Greg? All right, then,
There's a
There's an
Open
abutter.
member of the audience.
oh, I'm sorry. Hello, yes, please, take a microphone. Identify yourself for those at home, and
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Judici, Eagle Drive. Just a couple of comments, last questions. First of all, I'm not thrilled with the idea of a duplex unit, although I'll withhold judgment, as everyone else has indicated, until we see what the architectural plans look like. I just don't see how you make that look like a single-family home, those small lots. Secondly, with regard to water, Mr. Weddleton was pretty adamant at prior meetings that the water would need to be looped through Eagle and Cranberry Meadow,
Yeah.
rightly pointing out that, you know, one major issue here is because of the elevation difference between Park Street and this area, whether the houses would have adequate water pressure. So he had suggested that the town's water consultant take a look at the water model and actually run it to see if not looping that would actually provide adequate pressures in terms of, you know, for the homes and for fire protection, and that there might need to be a water booster station to accommodate that. Whether that has been completed yet or not, I guess would be one of my first questions, and if so, you know, what did that show?
I have not seen the results of that.
It was.
You gentlemen have some information about that?
Yep, Environmental Partners provided it on August 17th, 2018.
And what did it show?
Well, I mean, I think my interpretation is that the pressures could be met without looping.
Phil, have you seen that document?
I have not.
Okay.
Get it to you. Yep, certainly.
It's directed to the to Rich. The letter.
Doesn't say to. It lists us as the engineer, the applicant as the owner, and
We can.
that
We'll recircle. I think I'm pretty confident you probably got it last.
Yeah,
But it's
a
been
ways
quite
back.
some time.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right.
I could recirculate the letter
Yeah.
to take a look
Could that
at
be
it.
put up on the Could that be put up on the website as well, Rich? So
Sure.
we can take a look at it. Thank you. And a related issue in terms, and you alluded to it a few minutes ago, trench patching to me is a non-starter. I don't see how that would work. You know, the roads were in tough condition. Eagle Drive is, you know, a 30-year-old road at this point and hasn't been repaved. Cranberry Meadow, the same thing.
Yeah.
By the time you put a water main trench in and all the services, it'll be Swiss cheese out there and the road will be
Yeah,
falling
I
apart. So
understand.
whether it's the applicant or the town, I would think at least, you know, full width, if not, you know, reclamation of the road would be necessary,
Yeah, I understand.
in addition to Lawrence Street.
Well,
And
that
then-
might be one of the issues that we discussed back and forth in bargaining here with these gentlemen in terms of what they want, what we want, tied in with the water.
And then just lastly, just a general comment that, you know, I understand that bringing the water makes this a difficult development from an economic standpoint for the applicant. I don't see why the town should have to, you know, accept some concessions because of that. It's a requirement that they provide water to the development, and if it's not economically feasible to do so, then maybe the development itself isn't economically feasible.
Well, our position has been, as Mr. Weddleton stated, that we want that loop through there back to Lawrence Street, and that's still what we want. Now, if I understood your initial issue, which was the question about the duplex affordable, it ranged largely around the architectural issue. Will it fit in and look similar? Is
Well,
that right?
correct. That would be a concern, but as you indicated before, it doesn't sound like it's something the town has done on a regular basis, if ever. So to me, that sounds like a concession that the town would be making, and the
Well,
rationale behind that concession is that the developer has economic issue in terms of, you know, providing adequate water service, so therefore they have to do this and then get one more market rate lot out of the development.
Yep, understood. Understood. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? No? All right. Then, Rich, this is still a public hearing, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So we need a motion to continue to March 12th?
At 7:40.
7:40, okay.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Gentlemen, thank you. All right, next item up is 5 Shire Drive.
Hi, I'm Charlie Shepard from CDW Consultants, representing Raycon Construction.
Yep.
I believe I've been here once before.
Yep, I think so.
Introducing the site plan. Since then, we've been through, I believe, 3 peer reviews with Beta, and have.
Latest one being yesterday.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So I think I still have probably a couple little changes. I believe you want another check dam down the bottom. I think there was one other item maybe. I apologize, I didn't bring my letter with me tonight.
So the
So the big issue is the permission to move the dirt off the adjacent parcels. And did we determine if it's the town?
Well, so from what I understand, there's a fair possibility that the town might end up owning that piece of property through tax title. However, as I mentioned to you on the phone, the town had to go through a process to get the additional wastewater flow for the police station and the dispatch center, the regional dispatch center. Sorry, escaped me for a moment, but so through that process, town council had done the researching through all the documents and came upon that so Mass Bridge and Building, which I had spoken to you about, and also Island Power Lighting were essentially majority property owners, which they would be the ones that could consent to that. So we would have to, I would just run that by town council again, just to confirm that, but that they would be the ones representing the park.
If anyone's not aware, that there's a huge fill pile.
Yes.
It takes up half the lot.
Yeah.
And it does go over the lot lines, both on the right side, which is, we're developing the lot next door as well. And then in the back where the septic system is. So to remove it, they are gonna have to, grade off, the edges. There's no way to do it without.
Yeah, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is just getting the bloody signature.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can get, next door, I can get, because it's my client, so I can get some kind of letter there. I guess I have to figure out who the other people are involved.
So I think what we would, just thinking out loud a little bit, I think we would, not to bog down this process, but kind of work a condition that would be able to accomplish the goal, because there'd be some legwork, perhaps, to get that done. It'd be done. It could be done prior to endorsing the plans or something along those lines. Because there are a couple other conditions I think that will, some issues that will be incorporated as part of the decision condition-wise. Because I know the, well, I don't want to jump ahead, but.
Well, by the way, do you have this beta letter?
I didn't bring it, I apologize.
Here's a copy if you would like to have it.
Thank you.
The wall.
No, I brought my from home and gave him the one that you gave me.
So I believe the question on the wall is just getting a stamp, engineer's
Yes.
stamp on, which will be done. We won't do it as civil. There'll be a structural engineer, the final design of the retaining wall on this side here.
Yeah, right.
Now, we did shorten it. Originally, it came down and came around, and then we were flush here. But we've changed it. We had a rain garden here.
Yeah.
And we've changed that with some recommendations from Beta. So now the swale comes down here, catches the roof, catches this part. Now we sheet flow down here. We've put a catch basin here. We've put a catch basin here. These both feed in, come down to a new drain manhole at the stub.
Yep. This is-
So we were able to shorten this retaining wall. Now we have curb here, but we've shortened the retaining wall to
Yeah,
here.
and as you said a moment ago, you're gonna get a professional engineer to design that
Yes.
wall, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the client will hire a
Sure.
structural.
I read this Beta letter, and I'd like to just cover a couple of points if you could.
Sure.
First, page 2, bottom there, W10. We probably don't need a full photometric plan. However, there was a similar project that showed us what the lighting would look like from the building lighting. And could you pull up the three David Road lighting, just showing what that looks like? Because we would like to see something like this.
Sheet 5. Yeah.
It just shows that the lighting on the side of the building will spill over in that similar fashion, and that's what you would anticipate seeing. And presumably, you're gonna have building lights as well.
Yeah, he's just having, right now, just wall pack lights.
Yeah.
No lighting in the parking lot
Yeah.
is intended right now. I don't.
But those wall lights are gonna spill over, are they not, similar to this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know the design review board on that application, there was a sample of a wall pack light.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that we can get photometric for it.
Okay, but that's kind of, that would be acceptable to us.
Okay.
Something similar to that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Betsy. Page 4. This is the issue we've talked, R5, this is the issue we just talked about in terms of signature. And Rich suggested that we could make it a condition of the final decision, right, Rich?
Correct. Overall, I thought all the remaining issues could be done in a decision.
I think so, yeah.
So.
There's nothing major here.
Yeah, that was the only issue I had was the work on the adjacent property.
Yeah.
And I'll, as I draft the decision, I'll forward to Phil to take a look at. too,
Okay.
So,
with that having been said, we can begin to draft a decision for you. And hopefully the remaining issues, such as they are, can be resolved between now and the next meeting on March. And if so, then we can probably proceed to sign the decision and send you on your way. If the issues don't get resolved, it'll take another cycle, but we'll get there.
Yeah, my only concern is again, it's abutting property. I don't know how much, the legal, how much legal legwork is needed here.
yeah.
I can get something next door probably with a pretty,
Right.
short letter, because again, it's a client.
At least how it was kind of explained to me, with our project, that it seems like the legal legwork has already been done. It's just a matter of getting the signatures. So I'll just confirm that. We have a meeting on Thursday with town council, so I could just confer with them on that.
Yep.
Did you want to continue it, or did you want to close it and then have a decision?
No, I think I'd like to continue it.
Continue
and
and
we can close
then
it.
after the, okay.
And let remaining issues be resolved.
Okay.
Close it next time, sign the decision, assuming everything is cool, and
Okay.
away we go.
Okay.
So I need a motion to continue the 5 Shire Drive site plan, stormwater management, and earth removal permit special hearing and special permit for outdoor storage, continued until March 12th at 7:50.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. See you in March.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. All right, Rich, you want to update us on the Fox Run situation? Bond situation?
I did.
Yeah, we got that one.
Oh, did you do that? I'm sorry.
It wasn't a great update, I guess, huh?
didn't
Was it memorable?
I didn't check. I'm sorry, I didn't check it off. That's my fault. That's
all right.
my fault. My bad.
Next time you have to do it in song.
Town planner update. Was he town center grant?
Yes.
Okay, you want that's
So
the next
yeah,
item.
we definitely can talk about the town center grant. We had a meeting of the B1's working study committee. I think that's the name. I kind of trip over the name a little bit sometimes here, but we met last night with MAPC. We went through the work scope, executing the work plan, and getting community feedback. And so one of the things that we did discuss last night was the end date for the project to complete the work is June of this year. And we have built in some public participation pieces in there. And one of what was discussed last night, we have a interactive web piece as part of the budget for feedback for people, as well as a community meeting. So what we talked about was doing some community input survey work first, get the feedback from folks, and then have a community meeting. I think it might kind of generate a little more interest for the community meeting, because there'll be something following, similar to what we did with the Complete Streets. What we discussed was that the next planning board meeting, which is pretty full, was to have a joint meeting of the planning board, the design review board, and the zoning committee all together that night. MAPC would come in and talk about the pieces that we would be putting together for the survey that would go out to the community. They wanted to, it would be good to make sure we touch on the right topics to include. And so that's one of the things that we talked about. Obviously, the elements we'd be talking about, just overview, design related discussions, uses, density, so we'll kind of shape the survey to get the feedback. We talked about, I think it went well with the Complete Streets, which we'll talk about shortly. And we wanted to, we have so many bites of the apple here, and what we're trying to do is target an April meeting, I think we talked about, for a community meeting. So probably towards the maybe mid to the end of April, because we wanted to have the survey out the end of March, go through March and April, get the survey, collect that, have the community meeting. But
does that leave enough time after that to do all the rest of the work by the end of June?
well, we think so.
Okay.
It appears so.
Well,
Now the thing is, the work. Well, go ahead.
we're really only getting to a set of recommendations.
Right.
So we're not writing law or anything like that. So.
Well, no, we're good.
Well,
We could be, yeah.
But
So what we did talk about to meet the timeline is, so on the recommendation side of things, so once we do the community meeting, most likely myself and Aaron and Kevin, who are on the, well, you won't be on here anymore. You can come back after the election, but at least we would come to the planning board and kind of give some updates as we're going along, as the recommendations are being formulated before presenting them. They would be presented in a format that we could move on to adoption, but it wouldn't be till the fall. So it's not, we're not prepared to do anything in the spring. What we did talk, if we can swing it, we would like to have probably MAPC come back. As you know, it was discussed how Jack had done before he left, the kind of that meeting before town meeting, go through the warrant, have a, we'll do something on YouTube. We might just video it here and then broadcast it, but get, basically push out the information ahead of time for people to know what we're talking about, so they don't get it cold going into town meeting as best as possible. So,
Okay.
so having said, having the triple, I guess, so to speak, 3 groups together, which I think would be a great idea. I think it's a good use of everyone's time, and
Hard to
because
schedule everybody, but if you got enough lead time, you probably can do it.
well, we're gonna have to kind of make it work. I think that's kind of what we had.
A lot of choices.
That's what we talked about last night. Having said that, we probably could. We maybe do this earlier. I think would make sense. I mean, I don't know schedule wise if members could, how early they could be here.
Oh, in terms of 7 o'clock, you mean?
Yeah, well, looking at the agenda, we're scheduled in at 7 and
Yeah.
through 7 something. Yeah, I certainly think an hour is more than ample time.
I've got flexibility, but you guys.
6:30?
6:30, yeah, I take the 5.
The 5, yeah.
5 o'clock train from
Are you the
south from
similar
Cranberry, gets in at
train?
6:15,
I could
5:25.
I could probably get on the 420 if I.
You the same train?
I can, with enough lead time, I can work around.
So I think we did 6:30. We just gotta make it work.
What day are we talking?
March 12th?
Oh, for this next meeting?
Yeah, for the next meeting. I mean, if we, maybe run a little bit over. I mean, it wouldn't. The other. Well, if 134 comes back, they'd be interested in it because they're in the B1, so they probably would be.
I could probably block off time to leave work early and get in by 6. If you need the hour. 6.
I think we're gonna need the hour.
I think we're gonna need the hour. Yeah.
March 12th.
Or we'd use 2 if we had it.
Yeah, I mean, last night we went for 2.5 hours and really.
Yeah, Josh is pretty good. He's organized. He looks like he's ready to move this through and be efficient with it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be a waste of anyone's time to get everybody.
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're it kind of, as an aside, I mentioned this before. I think that the way things lined up, I think it worked out because we ended up with Josh, who's got quite a bit of experience in this area. So we ended up with having a really.
And the reason we want to get everybody together is because it's things that everybody's been talking about, and we just don't want to go public with the survey until everybody's had a chance to chime in.
Yeah.
So we only have one shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is March 12th. So it's kind of the way that works.
Well, I'm okay. It's you guys have the tough scheduling issues, so.
We can make it work.
We can make it.
Was that Gary's?
Oh, it's not a problem for me.
No.
What do you do? Do you send around a pre-read as you might get for, is there anything?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that Josh mentioned last night to kind of get something ahead of time. Hopefully at least a couple of days. Maybe we can get it.
Figure that out. I think he was going to send it to the committee, and hopefully the committee could comment on it, and then, so it's not if it's like there's some kill factor in there, we wouldn't send it to everybody, so.
What are the major discussion points that you actually thought you might need 2 hours to get to everything?
Well, there's a couple of major points, but the design review guidelines is a big one. You know, we've talked about getting to this sort of top 10 list. You know, that could take 2 hours, but that's the big one. And then, you know, we talked about a number of different ways we could go with zoning bylaw recommendations in terms of heights and densities, you know, meaty subjects, and even talked about, which I don't think we'll get into. I mean, I think one thing Rich didn't mention is we talked about beginning a new master plan process, sort of, I'll say concurrent, but even Josh recommended that this committee get out in front of that. So these business district zoning changes get out a little bit in front of the master plan so that they're not butting heads as they go. But you know, I think if we talk about some subjects that could then be picked up in the master plan, such as should some of the zoning boundaries be changed or manipulated or whatnot, like some subjects that it's probably a little bit too deep for us to get into this,
Right.
you know, this fall
Right.
conversation, but something we could make some recommendations as a committee to be further considered in the master plan and further down the road. So I mean, it's some meaty stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely, it would lead to some more focused discussions for the master plan. Then, I mean, it's broader, but it was exactly right, which I thought would be good to bring in. And then we could, you know, thinking about the master plan and how to go about doing it, we could, you know, the timing, we could think about funding too. There are some different grant opportunities that we could take a look at too, that we might help us along with the master plan thing to kind of deal with some of the costs.
When we did that in '92, we had a small group of 4 or 5 citizens who got together and worked on it it took us a year to do it.
Yeah. Well, then that's...
We didn't have any grants or anything, it was just a matter of elbow
No, that's a lot of hard work, and...
grease. The guy who did 90% of it was Bob Nicodemus.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a really good conversation, I thought. You know, like the easy pickings is the zoning bylaws say you can only have 16 residential units on a single site in the business district, right?
Yeah.
And look at the apartment complex working on that, which has 80.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, if you want to make viable redevelopment proposals for some of the downtown sites, you know, that 16 is going to have to go up, you know, 10 times. So.
And then have somebody do development under the zoning bylaw as opposed to being
40B.
Going out and having to do things as a 40B. You know, that's the.
Yeah.
I mean, that was part of the discussion too. So.
And
The apartments still satisfy 40B. Right?
Yeah, no, they do. They do. Yep.
Yep.
But you know, it's.
See another item here that you want to add some more people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So we did. So my French is not very good. You know how to pronounce Janine's last name? Dubuque. Thank you. You help me out. And Ed Haddad, they both were at the meeting last night. They had expressed interest in being on the committee. So what we've asked.
Are they just citizens from the town? Or they live in the center?
What's so I won't give their exact zeroed in address, but Janine is on Main Street. She's just outside, and then Red Maple Run, Ed lives on, which is the Villages River's Edge.
Okay, yeah.
Interested citizens.
Interested citizens. So we usually don't want to turn away interested citizens, right?
Absolutely.
And so that part of it would be to vote to recommend them be added to the committee, and then board votes that. Then I'll have them go in to see Carol to get sworn in to be on the committee, and then we discussed adding one more. So I contemplated out just sending it out, but I held back. I do have a kind of a new blast we could put out there for one more citizen. We want to have a even number committee to make us work harder. No, I'm just kidding. But again, all kidding aside, this committee is going to really be bringing recommendations to other bodies to implement, so it's not, to be so rigid to having an odd number. I don't think it's really an issue. So we thought maybe put out a request for one more citizen.
I'd also add to that if, hopefully this is at the beginning of a process, not the end of a process. Like, and the master plan will follow on beyond that, and I'm sure there'll be a committee to advise the master plan. So to have more interested citizens, starting now and going into the future.
Yeah.
I've obviously said my piece on a number of occasions. So.
Sure. Okay, so we need a motion to accept those two gentlemen as members.
Gentleman and lady, and then
Okay.
and then seek one more participant. And if we don't get somebody, we don't get somebody.
I
But
understand. All
that'll
right.
be worthwhile.
Someone to craft a motion, please, to do that?
Motion to add 2 interested citizens to the, I don't know, what's the right terminology?
Zoning
Working
E1
committee.
zoning working committee, and pursue a 3rd interested applicant.
All right. Do we need to name those 2 people? I think we do, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Janine Dubuque and Ed
Haddad.
Haddad.
there we go. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you. I'll let them know
All right.
and then we'll put up on the website again like we did.
Okay.
Blast that out.
All right. Now you want to hit complete streets with the.
And so we're gonna do. Is that everybody can work the schedule to do 6?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we said that.
All right.
Complete streets.
Can I kill some time? Are you ready?
I've read it.
I'm gonna kill some time here while Rich and Betsy are talking. We received an official resignation letter from Mr. Kevin Calcutt.
Yes,
Another one?
we did. We did.
We got a notice from our friend William P. O'Donnell that the state has contributed almost $41,000 to the CPA funding for the 2018 year.
Yep.
Rich, you can cut me off at any time you're ready.
Okay. So that money is how much fees are generated by the town, which I thought was how much we got, but that's not the case. So
No.
just as a clarification.
Contributed.
Yeah,
to
the
that
fees
fund.
that are generated from the town.
To the,
Just as a.
to the state.
Oh.
Yeah, just as a.
Because I was in the same frame of mind you were, that we were
One
getting.
will note that is one of the smaller numbers on that page in comparison to the other municipalities.
Yeah.
Right.
As a side note.
As compared to what we actually get. Yeah, so we're ready to go. So, what I have up there, which is hopefully not terribly hard to read for people at home, but what we did is Howard Stein Hudson provided us. I'm going to go over there just to be a little bit closer.
Yeah. Take a mic.
So Howard Stein Hudson, let me back up. So this information that's on the screen is on the town website for people, the public to take a look and review. But what we have is Barry La Riviera from Assistant DPW Director broke this one down by project types, which is kind of nice compared to the one that's on the website. So he broke it down by categories, which were sidewalks, other improvements, bicycle improvements, ADA, crosswalk. And so this is from the wiki maps that we had out there for people to feedback in, the community meeting that we had December 6th, and then input from other departments. They've compiled this prioritization plan. They're not ranked right now. Which we do.
They're not ranked.
They're not ranked, no. So that's part of what we need. That's going to be the next step. If there's things that jump out as we go through this, you want to give consideration to rank them, please do so. I do have, as we go through this, there are some maps that we can look at kind of spatially to see where these are. What I also am asked Howard Stein Hudson to do is February 20th is when we're closing out the public comment. I wanted to try to get the public comments in, have go through the comments, put together the priority plan and ranking, and then present it to the Board of Selectmen. It's kind of another opportunity for the public to hear how the rankings came out before we submit it to the state. I think we should be able to do that. I don't think they're going to tell me I can't do what I want to do, and do that for us to just add some more participation. But it could change, but I wanted to let you know that's what we're trying to shoot for. They haven't cost any of these out necessarily yet, so, but
You propose to go through the whole list tonight? There's 49 by my count on the list here.
I know, it's a big list.
It is.
I think that we can group together the similar project scopes, so identifying, hey, we're doing these crosswalks, we're doing these sidewalk areas, we're doing this when it comes to a little bit more than just sidewalk or crosswalk, talking about the additions to the train area or whatnot. You can group them as more of what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be each individual line.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to approach it.
So what's the process you're going to use to prioritize, Rich?
So the other document that I sent was actually, hold on, there's a so there is a what was developed as a prioritization criteria, and criteria breaks down and by, for example, network connections to the system.
Yeah.
There's pedestrian improvements, POI they call it, places of interest to walk, number of POI bicycling, number of bicycle crashes adjacent to the project, number of pedestrian crashes adjacent to the project. One that's a little more subjective, but is existing bicycle level of comfort, which, you know, that's a little bit open to interpretation what that means. A proposed change in bicycle level of comfort. Of course, these are all, they are on the website as well, but just to give you a sampling of them. Safety-related, stakeholder input, school zone, walk zone. And then if there's other criteria that we wanted to add in, we can create our own criteria. One of the things is we do have to rank the projects. However, we can submit for funding projects not necessarily sequentially. Yeah. So, as you know, I mean, there's going to be cases where, you know, based on maybe a project adjacent to it or funding or so forth, that we may want to move something up or down the list. So we do have that flexibility to do that.
Okay, so you're going to apply these 14 criteria to each one of these projects?
Correct.
In
Yep.
some sort of numerical fashion, I guess?
Yes. And then if you look at this table going across, you could see where well, one, the project location, but where this came from,
Yep.
as far as how it got on the radar.
Yep.
So, and then across, there's running downwards different criteria which it hits. Read it out. So, safety, mobility, ADA accessibility, pedestrian mobility, bicycle mobility, transit operation, vehicle operations, freight operations. So those are the different categories that they hit. What we kind of hopefully envision for this plan is not only, you know, there is the funding through the state, but that this kind of is something as development occurs within town, that we use this as something to take a look at as far as some priorities that have been identified to see if projects could add to that. Try to hit this list, because as you mentioned, it's a long list. And not necessarily inexpensive list. Some things are pretty cheap, you know, as far as signage goes, it's advance warning, but there are significant dollars associated with some of these projects. In this first page alone, you know, the idea of, which is a great idea, having a sidewalk on Union Street is not an inexpensive undertaking.
And as I recall earlier discussions, we can apply for a grant for, we might get one a year, possibly two, but,
Correct.
yeah, okay, all right, yeah.
There might be situations here which I can envision that we might take a project, just say hypothetically, we get design, maybe design money comes from a development project, we apply for it, and or it becomes a TIP project that there's money for the state to fund it. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
it really, you know, gives us a good, and the idea of this is, again, if we go for state money from different pots, that this is a plan that we can use.
Yeah, the state money, the Complete Street grant is for construction, not for design, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
And it's capped at 400,000?
And it's capped at 400,000, yeah. So.
Rich, who's managing this now? Does this go to DPW?
After this is done, yeah, it's more of a DPW.
They could pick up some of these in their budget too, right?
They could, yep, yep. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, hopefully it's a tool for them too, budget-wise, to just kind of. I don't know. Questions, though. I like you have any thoughts, Hedda? I mean, my general comments about the list of projects here, I mean, some of these are probably going to be closer to not feasible in some cases. You know, there's, because of right-of-way constraints that we have and just the land alone to be able to do some of those. And I can give you an example, although I don't want to. I also don't want to say no either necessarily, but you know.
To a certain extent, don't you need to pick up at this point and fund an execution plan? Like, I mean, this is, I don't know what committee in town is going to sit and go through this list and prioritize it outside of the DPW.
No, it's probably predominantly them, but I think, you know, if you want, so I can.
I mean, you got to sit down with a map of the town.
Yeah.
Write out each of these, determine feasibility based on legal property rights.
Well, some of this is going to be a little bit higher level. True, I agree. I mean, we will do some of that self-vetting through it. I am meeting with DPW this week to kind of go through some of this. So I suppose if you wanted to,
Seems like it lends itself to maybe a 2 or 3 level sort. You'd kind of go through the first one and say, you know, if we had all the money in the world, these are the 5 ones we really want to do.
Yep.
The second level of sort is, you take those 5, and then you apply these criteria to them, and you look at the costs, and you say, whoops, 3 of them dropped out. I've only got 2 left. Of the 2, we're going to go with number B. Because you can't spend all the time.
And I'd add to that, Walter, that you might even, like, you got to identify funding sources, right? Like, maybe one of your categories, DPW could pick up in their funding and budget for it. One of the categories is the Complete Streets funds. And then a third category could be, we got to fundraise if we want to execute these projects, right? Or get commitments from developers or something, right?
Yeah, so I think, no, those are all really good points. So perhaps what I would suggest that I would do is I would reach out. Well, so we're going to meet this Thursday with DPW. We'll go through it and then do some ranking, so to speak, to this a little bit and send it back out to everybody for your review. And
or even with dollar signs, like 2, 3, 4.
Right, like a menu.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you got to. If there's going to be decisions made at some point, you got to figure out how to rank the things, right? I mean, feasibility, costs.
Right. So let me. So let's leave it at this. What I'll do is, like I said, we're going to sit down on Thursday, put our heads together, and then bring something back to you. This is a.
It's an overwhelming list when you look
There's-
at it. My God.
I don't disagree. I mean, it's a.
I mean, it's
So
all,
DPW might have half of these in there
that
planned.
could be,
too,
that
right?
could be.
I mean, I certainly know some of the things that pop up, at least on this first page, is on their priority list. You know, that sidewalk's there, so.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily maintenance items that currently exist on the DPW capital plans. A lot of this is improvement stuff that wouldn't necessarily live in those types of plans.
Yeah, but they have a capital improvement plan which includes extending the sidewalk scope of work across town.
Nothing that is currently actionable, right? I mean, they have, yes, there's a sidewalk plan that's attached to the 2007 master plan, right?
Yeah.
I think that considering this is something that's extra to all of that's out there right now is a good place for everybody to sit in terms of mindset. The one thing I would say about this, Rich, is that, you know, the way that we constructed this list was the feedback from a consultant that's done this in many other municipalities, the feedback from the community, the overwhelming feedback from the community, I should say, both electronic and in person during the presentation meeting. A lot of components have gone into building this monster list. At what point do we get that kind of input to identify which of these hits a higher priority level? Is that something that the consultant is going to provide for us, or is that something that we're to kind of associate?
It's kind of a
ourselves?
combination, but I think maybe to kind of have it at a more manageable level is that like I said, that I think I'll reach out to Casey and talk about, you know, meet with DPW, like I said, Thursday, and see if they can kind of synthesize this down a little bit to kind of, to put it more manageable for then us to kind of.
Yeah, you can't, look at it from, if I had this task in front of me, there's no way I could devote all those criteria to every one of these things. I'd be here 6 months from Sunday.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do a cut that says, somehow, maybe these are the ones I really like to do. Let me get that list of 6, 8, whatever, and then I'll apply the criteria to them and sort that, because otherwise you go nuts trying to do it all. Just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah. I agree. No, I thought it was
okay.
a point taken.
Is it closer to $400,000 work in total or $4 million work in?
This year?
All of them together. Closer to the 4 million?
Closer to
Probably
4
closer
million,
to 4
yeah,
million,
probably. So,
Yeah.
and by the time you get down to the 23rd one, it'll be 6 years out, and things will change, and the priorities will change, and you'll drop 10 and add 14, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that was coming. I mean, this is like a master wish list.
Yeah, it
Right?
is,
I mean, that's,
yeah.
It wasn't a $400,000 wish list.
No.
No, it's not a $400,000 list.
It's a series of $400,000 wishes is what it is.
The next 10 years of $400,000.
Like a $400,000
Well, yeah,
grant, that's a one-time thing?
Oh, no, it's funded on an annual basis. It's just that it's.
And you're competing with all the other towns who are doing
Yeah.
this, so.
I mean, correct, yeah. I mean, I think it's been a really good program
I do too.
for the state, and I think they probably are now trying to figure out a way to get more money into this program because it is successful to the point that there are so many projects they're having a hard time funding them. All right, so just a recap, I will reach out DPW Thursday. I'll reach out to Howard Stein and see if we can kind of funnel this down a little bit. That's more manageable for everybody to weigh in on, and then report back.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I have some more stuff. Onto it.
One more thing here before we get to that. Update street acceptance, you want to just touch on that quickly before we let Aaron go?
Oh.
Etching.
Yeah, well, we need to, so Tailwind Circle, we're plugging along for Tailwind Circle, Westfield Drive, Saddle Ridge Way, which is the one that DPW finished. We're going to try to move that along and see. There's quite a bit of documentation that we're going to need to put in place, which I'm not sure we're going to be able to get it all done, but because we got to chase down some owners to get some signatures. But we're proceeding along with those 3 right now. Tailwind Circle looks pretty good, actually. I'm gonna rank that in the high 90% category that it's gonna make it all the way through. Actually, Westfield Drive is probably similar.
And both of those would probably shoot for the May,
Yeah,
town
we're
meeting?
shooting for
Yeah.
May town meeting,
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
Yep. Saddle Ridge. We'll see. I don't know. Just as not to bore you, but we've got some deeds we needed to get signed to chase some people. So, okay, I got the cue. Go ahead. That's it for that.
All right, I'll go through my pile quick. I made a few notes to try and make it quicker. So Franklin, there's a lot going on in Franklin. Just a lot. I did. That's actually in here. I got that one out. But
The restaurant that closed.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's right.
So there's a whole list of zoning bylaw amendments they've recently adopted.
Really?
They don't actually tell you what they are on this notice, but if you are looking around,
Yeah.
there's a hotel going in. This is Medfield. Actually, it's one of the restaurants that's sort of in the residential neighborhood behind the center of town. They're putting in a tap room brewery.
Name of it?
It's not here.
Oh, it's not
I
there,
can't
okay,
remember
okay.
it, but it's back behind the center of town, sort of down a residential road. The parking lot's across the street from the
Oh,
restaurant.
yeah, I know
It's
what
been
you
there
mean. Yeah,
forever.
yeah.
Basil.
Basil.
Thank you. That's it. Cranberry Meadows is going to have to change their name because the cranberry is being sold. 32 acres for 20 lots of development. So there goes their view.
Is that the,
That's the 61A that we talked about.
is the cranberry bog included in the sale? Because last time it went up for sale, like a couple years ago, the bog wasn't actually included in the parcel.
I don't actually think the bog is included in this one either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Positive note.
Yeah.
still have a unfarmed cranberry bog.
Yeah.
Eversource is putting in new transmission lines within their existing easements, it sounds like. We got notices from several towns related to that. The distillery in Contro, it looks like they're putting in a distillery. And Massachusetts Land Conservation Conference is coming up in March with some pretty interesting topics. If anybody wants it's March 23rd, if anybody wants the list. It's here. I'm going to give it to Betsy. And then there's the open house for the opening of the police department.
Yep.
Oh, and I have one to add. The Cannabis Control Commission on Thursday approved the first retail license for an independent marijuana store not affiliated with a larger marijuana company, what they're calling a mom and pop marijuana store in Uxbridge.
Uxbridge.
So I thought that was interesting.
Well,
Close. You don't have to travel all the way to the city to one of those like medical dispensaries. You could just get your weed in Uxbridge.
Beer, alcohol, and weed.
Probably
Coming.
grown in Franklin.
It's all around us.
Plainville too, right?
It's like Joe's Sushi and Bait
Isn't
Shop.
Plainville getting one attached to a bar?
Attached to
Yeah.
a bar? That sounds like
That's
a great
Plainville,
idea.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very popular place for a different demographic group, so I'm kind of surprised. Anyway, that's a side for them, but the tavern on Route 1?
No, never been.
Right, so.
Okay, any other new business?
Nope, nope.
No, any other new business, gentlemen? Nope. Then I think it's time to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.